All right, welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Scrambled Jake's Breakfast Company. Simply the best place in East Tennessee to start your day. Farm fresh foods, great recipes, and you can dine in or take out. Maybe it's feeding your office, maybe it's a trip to the lake or a park or a picnic. Let Scrambled Jake's Breakfast Company do the heavy lifting for you. And it is a great place for private events, too. Reach out to them. ScrambledJakes.com to learn more. Tremendous spot right out in Rocky Hill in West Knoxville. Visit them this week, Scrambled Jake's. All right, still talking about the 12-team playoff. We got 3 things to cover here and no time to do it. So let's race into these. First question is, part of the reason they're doing this is basically you saw 3 or 4 schools just go to the top with this playoff, and they sit there every year and they dominate the sport, and they're thinking that this might add parity back to the sport. And if you're at Tennessee, for example, or at school, any school that's not Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, or Georgia, this may give you more of an opportunity to recruit against those guys. Now there's more slots in the playoff. It's not just, well, if I go to a playoff, I got to go to Ohio State. Do you believe this will aid on the parity front or no?
I don't think the results are going to be that different on the field necessarily, but I think it will help in recruiting, and it can't make it less parity.
Can't be worse.
It can't be worse. And for whatever it's worth,
last word.
Yeah, as soon as you say that, it is worse.
But for whatever it's worth, I don't think you can get worse in recruiting, and the fact that those teams have 3 or 4 games a year that they can lose, I think that number might rise a little bit.
What if we just get to a point where there's 12 programs that just dominate, same 12 every year?
That sounds more fun than 3 or 4. I'll say that.
Anybody else want to chime in on that one?
I don't think it'll have an impact on Tennessee. I think if you're irrelevant on the national scene, and you have been for more than a dozen years, I don't think this will have a positive impact on Tennessee.
So this won't open more avenues in terms of recruiting against Alabama or anything?
Not in my opinion.
Because if it was 12, what would you think? SEC gets 3 in? I know it depends.
3 or 4.
Tennessee in the last 12 years would have been 0 for 12.
Yeah.
But boy, in the 90s, if you go
That's
back
right,
into the
in the
80s,
90s, that's
if
right.
you go back to the late, starting about 89, how many playoffs would you have been in?
A bunch.
But if you get it rolling, though, 12 is not that hard. If you're Tennessee, getting the 4, that means you got to beat Alabama. You got to beat these teams. Getting in is if Heupel or whoever is next gets it rolling, it's a little more realistic.
Will this make the regular season more meaningful or less meaningful? My fear is it's going to make it less meaningful. I don't see how it doesn't make it less meaningful.
I think it makes it less meaningful, but it's still meaningful in that you still have to be good enough to be in the top 12, right? So you can still lose. Previously you could lose 1 or 2 one game.
It's not the NHL or NBA yet.
Yeah.
It's not half the teams
But
get
you
in.
still have to be at least 9-3 or so to get in. So the regular season's still meaningful, but not as meaningful.
And see, that's my problem. If you're 9-3, you don't deserve a national championship.
Yeah, less meaningful, but I don't buy the apocalyptic scenarios at all. I think college football is so culturally ingrained in so many spots that Saturday is not just a football game. That's what everyone's doing, and everyone's around the TV or they're tailgating or at the game. And I think that still matters in, 2/3 of the country?
Yeah, and I think it gives
It's
somebody
Armageddon.
besides Alabama a shot to get in. Alabama can still be up here. Even if they do slip up, they're still going to make the playoffs, right? So they're still going to be there. Does it give somebody else, that's been on the outside looking in, does it give them a chance to get? So, I mean, that's what you just have to wait and see.
Well, if you go back through time, back when Hugh Freeze was at Ole Miss would have made a playoff in one of these years. They were in the top. They would have made this ranking. I saw
Sounds
somebody break it down, which he would have bought his way in. All right. And then the last one, this is the one I find fascinating. What does this do for coaching security? You've got more slots to get in the playoffs. I just don't think that's the way our culture works. I think it's getting harder and harder in terms of reaction. Again, I think if Tennessee somehow loses the next 2 baseball games, Vitello's going to go from the hottest name in town to there'll be people who are mad. When I look at you'll have people who are mad. Tired of this. We'll do the mean tweets. I only have to do it. How many times do I have to prove on this show?
Well, I mean, here's
how right I am. But
Here's
anyway, my point
how I
is,
look at that. What if you don't make the top 12?
yes.
What
okay.
if you're not in that 12? How does your next season look?
Well,
Especially if you go to a bowl game and lose it.
If there are 12 slots, I don't think that makes it better for coaches. The idea is more coaches get in. But I think it's going to be, Jimmy, well, you didn't get in. How did you not get in with 12
you got
slots?
all those spots available,
Yeah.
and you can't get in, and yet these other 3 schools in the SEC got in and you didn't, then there's more pressure on you. And to me, a great example of that right now would probably be a program like Auburn, which fired its coach. But here you are in an Auburn or one of those a team similar to that. If you don't get in, then by golly, we're going to find a coach who can
Just
get
the
in.
attitudes across the SEC, I think you're going to see 8 teams in the league say, well, there's 12 spots. We should be in at least every other year, twice in a
Right,
recruiting
yes,
cycle. It's like you
exactly.
start doing the math, everybody's going to get fired. But that's
you're
what
right.
it is, expectations.
I think fan bases around here think, well, we should be in at least 6 of the next 12.
Not every year.
Yeah, but I'm crazy.
every other year.
Well, here's my question: is also, I think the idea that you'd be in the playoffs, so they're not going to fire you. I think if Mark Richt got in the playoffs 5 times and didn't win a national championship, it'd be just like not making it when
Yeah.
there was no
I
12-team
agree.
playoff. I don't see that being any safer.
Dan Mullen. How about that? How about
Yeah.
Florida? They're already kind of happy. Unhappy. Florida in this season with 3-game losing streak.
Yeah.
Now you get into something like this, and you don't get in, or you get in and you're out. That's not
Or
going to
you
fly.
lose to a group of 5 team
Yeah.
in a playoff game.
Like
Yeah.
Central Florida or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Cincinnati. Yeah.
Or Cincinnati.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I love it. I mean, it's talk show fodder, so I think it's cool. I just hope at some point before the show dies or I die that Tennessee will be in the mix to make a playoff. When we can, I don't know which one lasts longer. When we come back, Nick Saban, speaking of lasting longer, Nick Saban signs another extension. He's going to be coaching at Alabama if he lives out his contract, works through his contract. He'll be coaching at Alabama until he's 77. Is that oh no, Tennessee can't get rid of this guy, that you might think at first blush? We'll discuss. Come on back.